My name is Dave Camarillo. I've been training since I was 5. I'm a black belt in judo, black belt in jiu-jitsu. Train MMA fighters at the elite level, UFC champions. I've trained special operations, law enforcement as well. I've taken all of my experiences in judo, jiu-jitsu, combatives to understand the best way to articulate the knowledge that I possess. And in this case, specifically on something I've been obsessed since a child with, is the arm lock position, the crossbody arm lock position, Jujigatame. So what you'll see in this series is you're going to see my favorite attacking position, something I've worked on for my entire life in judo competitions, in jiu-jitsu competitions, training with elite level wrestlers. And you'll see a lot of that experience within the teaching. And then you'll see positions that I use, the side control mount and back and knee on stomach to get to the crossbody armbar position. And then I'll take a step back again and show my favorite passes, understanding the fact that transition really is taking advantage of every single grip, leading you all the way into the prize, which is the arm, the Kimura, and the straight arm lock. And then I'll show you my stand-up theories on transition, taking somebody on their feet, applying Kazushi, off-balancing them, and getting the throws, mixing wrestling and judo concepts and technique. And then we thread everything together. There's no more a complete arm lock system in existence. And this is essentially the top game. I am on top, I'm staying on top, and I'm channeling you all the way through these positions to reach my goal, which is your arm. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the crossbody position. It's my favorite position. Some people say it's the crossbody armbar. Let's put the armbar aside. This is a pin first, okay? So when I get in here, I've developed a system or a framework to understand this crossbody position. And there's 2 parts to it. Each have 3 sectors to it. So the first one is the geographic locations to which I apply pressure and attack. For now, we're going to put attack aside. The other half of that is the 3 phases of the armbar. So we're going to really be dealing with phase 1 in this first lesson. It's the best defense for him. Phase 2 is when I break that lock. Okay. Phase 3 is when I break that lock. Okay. And there's strategies to deal with all 3 of those. So 3 and 3, the geographic locations and the phases of the attack accompany themselves to create this rule of 6. It's just a framework to understand the position. The first part of this, though, is indoctrination. And if you look at the definition of that, essentially, it's learning. So essentially, it's a very narrow view of something so that you can really grasp a concept, and then you can add your bias or your previous experience to it. Right now, this is a pin. It's not an armbar position, okay? And the reason why that's important is because we tend to get very distracted. We get distracted by the triumph of finishing our opponents. Really, I want you to focus on this position as a pinning position. The first drill I actually have my students do is they're not allowed to finish. They'll hold this position, they'll traverse through the mid, the head, and the leg side positions, putting a lot of pressure on this phase 1, phase 2 situation, and not allow their opponents to escape, but also restricting themselves from the attack. Again, the attack can distract you from the control. And I've seen a lot of people lose arm locks because they're not really paying attention to the pin. Specifically, what I mean by that is the 4 quadrants. You have the shoulders and you have the hips. When they start riding up, I want to push them back down. Okay? So it's a constant kind of mode that I'm in. As soon as he creates the space, I want to smash that space back down with the ground. How do I accomplish that? Well, we're going to start with the mid position, and we're going to start with a very basic, easy grip. Okay? It's either just palm to palm, or you're going to control your wrist. Okay? So from this position, I lock my legs, as you notice. So this is like a closed guard, okay? And when I close my guard, I even see some people, they tend to ride their knees up, okay? Now, you can do that for the finish, but when I'm smashing the sides that are most important for the pin, it's really important. The reason why I close my guard is to generate power to flare my knees and attack the 2 main areas to which my opponent is going to use to escape. Number 1, head movement. Okay, so if he can move his head, he can create space. If he can move his head, he's comfortable. I don't want him comfortable. I want to smash him. So there's a process in each of these 3 geographic locations to which I disrupt the spine. I want constant pressure on his spine. I do this from guard. I do this on top as well. The other side is I want 2 things. A disruption of his bridge, but sometimes that's very difficult. So a disruption of his bridge, but also a connection to the bridge. So if he starts bridging, I'm right there with him. So he's going to bridge, and it slows his bridge down because I'm constantly putting pressure into it, and that'll wear him down over time. The idea for me in the pin is to relax, breathe, have the confidence that I can hold somebody down, and that way I can keep kind of picking at them and take away their energy bar. Like Street Fighter 2 has an energy bar. You're constantly cutting that down to weaken his defenses. I think that's the best approach to have good finishes, okay? So we'll have the mid position. I lock my hands. And the reason why I like locking my hands here is so that I can extend my arms. And what that gives me, it gives me range so that I can put my back on the ground. When I put my back on the ground, I mean, it's really good to post, but it's actually not as good as I just put my back on the ground, flare my knees, pull the heels into my body, and drive my hips forward, okay? I do it to the point where we reach what I call the threshold. So the tactic, once I get to the crossbody position, is reach what's called the threshold. The threshold essentially is when there's a tug of war and there's no more movement. There's just slight back and forth, but that string is, or that rope is straight. And that's the idea here. I don't want a lot of travel here. The more travel, that could lead to a scramble. So I'm trying to eliminate that and drive my hips forward. He's going to have a long day because I'm attacking the same arm here. But look, I've already started to break down that phase one, what we call the RNC defense, which is a strong defense. The reason why is because he's protecting this target arm that I'm targeting. And he has this, we'll work on this troubleshooting later, but he has this other hand somewhat free to attack my leg. So I want to put my back on the ground, and you should experience this with a partner, and they're going to give you feedback, which is really important because he has a certain point of view that I don't, and I'm driving. And so the first thing we want to do is make a drill out of this. So he's going to start bridging, and you're going to see the connection that I have. You're not going to feel it, but if you're down where he is, you'll feel me disrupting the spine, and he's going to try to get out. Go ahead and try to get out. Okay. All right, time. So obviously he's not thrashing 100%, but the idea is you want to feel that connection. If I open my legs, I don't have the same connection. Okay, and again, I am specifically running this type of position to wear him down and keep him pinned. Okay? All right, so now we're going to start transitioning. I mean, there's other grips I can use. Also, the Kimura locked out grip here. This is even worse. But I'm going to start transitioning here. So we have our mid position, a very strong pinning position. Okay? Now I'm going to transition side to side. Now when I transition, I want to start using these levers and fulcrums. Okay? So I call this the bladed fulcrum, really. But when I transition, my left hand is going to shoot forward as I pull the target arm. And traditionally, I want that elbow to my chest when I'm shooting forward. But I'm going to have an opposing force pulling the arm as I shoot my arm forward. Now, what I'm trying to accomplish is get to the head side while maintaining as much as I can the pressure that I've mustered or created from that mid position. Now, anytime I transition, and there's going to be a lot of transitions when we go through the curriculum, okay? But anytime you transition, the kind of reality is I might have a super stable position here, but as I transition, it's going to drop in control by even just a little bit. So our idea is to keep our fundamentals strong and make sure that I'm eliminating as much space as possible. Also, if you notice, I'm putting my back on the ground with a locked out Kimura here. When I transition, I gotta go off the ground. So I know what I'm losing. I no longer have the leverage that I've gained from the ground, meaning when he tries to bridge me back, my back is there to hold him. Okay, so I'm using the ground, I'm using my technique, I'm using his own body to keep him pressured. Okay, now when I sit up, I'm losing a degree of control and I'm vulnerable. So I sit up, I gotta make sure I'm there right away. Push, pull, and I'm not even using so much of a gi grip, I'm just pulling it, and then I'm gonna assist it. When I do this, two things happen. I drive it as deep in my pocket as possible, and to maintain that platform of pressure that I really want when I'm pinning, I want to be as low to the ground as possible, I'm going to open my legs and turn to the side, okay? What I also do is I just let my arm go relaxed, I straighten it. I don't want to be up on my elbow because that's supporting a little higher position, which I don't want. I want to drop all the way down. Now, when I drop all the way down, that puts more pressure. We have this lever, we have this fulcrum position, which essentially he's either winning or I'm winning. Okay? I want to talk about that. So this is in the transition towards the head, the lever on my own body, and that fulcrum position essentially is my leg. Okay, that teeter-totter. When we're in this position and I'm moving towards the head to put pressure, I want to win that situation. Okay, so I want to drive that towards the head. That starts uprooting his lock, and again, cutting down that energy bar to really make this as miserable as possible for my partner. So I don't want him to win. If he's going to win this and he pushes it back, then I can always go back to my mid. And that's the strategy, is somewhat work with him, but definitely make sure I'm over pressurizing this position. The other thing you're going to notice, that what's going to naturally happen is if you do this enough, you're going to start losing that phase one and going to phase two. Try to keep that phase one as much as you can, because the relationship between me and my opponent when he's in this position is the most pressure we can both kind of muster here. Okay, we're both working towards this. He's trying to save his arm, and I'm slowly trying to take it away from him. Now, what I've done towards the head side, and I've counterbalanced with my legs, keeping my legs tight, platform of pressure, is I've opened a space. And in that space, I'm going to use to transition. Okay, so instead of just ripping the arm and trying to finish, I'm going to transition to the other side. Again, I know that I'm losing a degree of control, so there's a couple things I do before I commit to it. I'll shoot my arm in. So at one point, if you took a picture, both of my arms are in. He's doing his best to hold. He's actually breaking that grip. Let's get it back. I shoot this in before I commit to it. Now I sit up, and my left hand goes to that bar position. Okay, I just call it the bar. Okay, it's where the arm bends. And I'm pulling that again to my chest because I'm transitioning. Again, if that stays to my chest when I'm transitioning from mid to head and head to leg, I know the arm's not going anywhere. Also, I know I'm eliminating any space, because again, this is a tug of war. He wants his arm nice and tight to the chest. I want his arm towards my chest. So when I'm here and I shoot this through, I bar it really quickly and then put my hand inside. Then comes the assist. My left hand comes on top, and I'm pulling it all the way to the side again, doing the same thing I was going to do towards the head. It's going to go in my pocket, this bladed part of my arm, not the cushion side, right? The bladed part, making sure I'm getting all that bone in the crook of my leg and driving all the way down. Now, again, there's a lot going on, but this is just the real basics of this. When I go to head side, which is my favorite side, because I have access to the leg, the near side leg. This is the leg he's going to sprawl with. This is the leg he's going to really bridge with. I want to make sure I take that bridge away. So how I do that is I connect myself to it first. And then I'm going to use my elbow to push his foot away. As long as his foot's not flat on the ground, I'm pretty good at disrupting his bridge. My legs flare the opposite direction, just like they did towards the head. And I'm low again, compact, creating that platform of pressure. And then I'm pulling that leg back nice and tight. Again, we're playing here with largely no gi grips. What I mean by that is I'm just using the friction of the gi. Even if I have access to the gi, that doesn't mean I'm going to grab it. So my go-to is to actually secure the body using the friction of the gi, not necessarily a gi grip. And the reason why is because gi grips at times take too long to get. And I don't want to have a game where I'm requiring a specific grip to move forward a step. I don't want that. I just want to pull this in, apply this pressure, and then move on to either my attack or sustaining this position. Okay, so we call this a mini thread, positional thread. Again, if you see, we're going from mid towards the head and towards the leg. All right, so one more time, we'll start here. I'm going to use a locked out Kimura grip. Locking out that Kimura grip, driving my body to the ground. It's going to be really hard for him to keep his position, but that's okay. Once my body hits, now I'm going to transition. Counteracting, pulling back that elbow, make sure it's tight to my body. Assisting from the top. The reason why I'm assisting from the top is these are weak grips. The top really is a commanding grip, and it allows me to lead with my elbow to pull my arm up, very much like a elbow up guillotine, right? Driving that up gives me enough space to work with to drive it as deep as I can as I open my legs. Again, folding my arm in. Yeah, I could be attacking here, but right now, many times I just settle. Even when I want to finish somebody, I settle and I let the pressure take its toll. There's a space, I'm gonna shoot my hand in, haven't committed yet. As soon as my arm goes all the way in, I go to the bar of the arm and I pull the elbow here. Again, assist, take away his bridge, just flatten your leg right here. And then I'm low again on that platform of pressure, nice and tight. And then what I'm gonna do is transition again to mid, to leg, and increase speed as I go. Now remember, with speed, the more dynamic I go, and I'm gonna use these words deliberate and dynamic. Deliberate just means more methodical. It's a slower approach to putting pressure. Dynamic is I'm really moving. Ideally, you build towards a more intermediate or advanced type of speed. Allow yourself to be dynamic and still maintain the integrity of the move and the details of the technique. So I'm going from leg, again, back to mid. Notice I'm closing my guard again, shooting through, going towards the head, and I'm literally just making sure I'm able to transition between those three positions. Again, this has to do with pinning and controlling. Like I said before, and as you're going to see as this goes, it's about putting a lot of pressure on your opponent. It's about the relationship between me, my technique in each of those positions, his arms actually contributing to the pressure, and me overriding that pressure. And the idea is many of my finishes, there's pretty much two ways to do it. I'm actually physically attacking you, like I'm doing a technique to straighten the arm out, or it's a result of me just over pressurizing this position, you fatiguing, and you slowly moving between the phases of the armbar, which we're going to talk about here soon. The main thing here, though, when you're doing this drill, what I would do is for lower level, start in mid position and have him just try to get out. Then if you feel comfortable with that, explore the transition. His objective is still to try to escape this position. My objective is to traverse between mid, leg, and head and back again. If I have a commanding understanding of that, then we can move on to attacking. Again, to reiterate, I think the best arm hunters in the world are not distracted by the triumph of pulling that arm free and finishing. They're very focused on the pin, which many times, if I'm on top in this case, requires at least a shoulder down, if not all four quadrants. Another concept of proactive and reactive. Once I turn that corner on this back attack, moving from in the center of the radar to south of the radar, right? I'm proactive, meaning I'm gonna grab right away, many times go right to the king share. That's my primary. Remember I talked about primary, secondary, tertiary. That's very systematic. The reality is though, when you're in a fight, sometimes your system needs to change up a little bit. So your secondary might be your primary, depending on body types and all kinds of things. So for example, if he has really long arms or really short arms, I'm going to attack the neck a lot more than attacking the armbar position. Why? Because we talked about the range of the arms. The long arms create more range, which releases pressure in the crossbody position. Shorter arms, as I tighten things up, he can wiggle out much easier, okay? So I'm turning this corner and being proactive. I'm setting things in motion for my partner. I reach here as I turn a corner. Now, what I want sometimes is I'm feeding the collar, okay? Or I'm reaching the collar, right? In this case, let's say I'm feeding the collar for my king's chair. So as I go to feed, he grabs and tries to roll. If I do nothing, he's gonna roll me all the way over to the side. So knowing this is a primary response, again, this could be offensive or defensive, it's a primary response for him to grab me and try to roll. So I'm essentially setting some bait out there. As I go and he grabs, I'm going to go wrist control. And I'm still in motion. I'm already in motion because my body can't be opposite to the side that he has control. Okay, let's back up a little bit. So he's still reactive. I'm proactively grabbing, he's reactive, I counter. So I'm ahead of the curve. And that's the idea. Also, that's why it's so important to make sure my feet are moving. Remember, I talked about all the principles of this position. I'm covering, I'm essentially using his back like a top. And I'm putting my chest plate, and I should be able to spin. You can even do drills that support this spinning motion. Again, to invest in your ability to move, because windows of opportunity can be handled two ways. Again, deliberately, you can slowly break them down, or dynamically. A dynamic, problem needs a dynamic solution many times, okay? Meaning he's grabbing and he's going. If I'm not set to get there to counteract his grab, then I'm in trouble. So as I secure that wrist, I'm already in motion. How do I do that? Like I ran my clock choke. I put my hand on the ground. Okay? You want to move quick? Put your hand on the ground and swivel. You can essentially use it like a top. You're spinning. So my right hand punches the ground to get over there. Now I'm going to use that momentum. We have an idea here. A circle of motion. So I'm going to turn this way. And I'm not going to interrupt that circle. Watch. Once I have the inside wrist, I'm pinning it to his body. I'm going to keep going. Keep going. Now, two ways I can accomplish this. One is just get the knee on the other side. My knee goes right over the ear and just blocks his head because I don't want his head moving to counteract the throw. At this point, I'm just dumping him on his side. This leg pulls and lifts. I push off the ground and travel all the way to my Kimura position. Okay, one more time. Where do I want to be as I turn the corner? Okay, I have decent crossbody armbar position. I go to grab for king shear. He grabs. I'm already on my way there. I'm going to continue that thought from another direction. Let's turn you this way because I'm going to hit the Kimura. So again, I turn like a top, get my knees out of the way, step it, pull this tight, throw him over, transition to a hollow grip. What takes over? The system. I go right into that throttle control and I drive my weight forward. Now I lock it out and I'm on that horse to get that job finished, getting that crossbody finished, or at least the system to then maybe slow things down. Now the other approach to this is more dynamic. I use my hips as a punch. So of course I can come in, he grabs, lock it, hold him in place. Weight, put shoulders down. This is how we teach people to cuff, for example. Drive weight, pull his legs out, clear the traffic, double up on it. Now I have a cuffing position. Same idea. Once I grab, put his shoulder pressure down. Bring my knee, then drive him over. Now I lock. So again, just reinforcing a very deliberate approach to get him on his side. Now we're going to hit a dynamic with what I call a hip punch. So again, I've created momentum here. I stay in motion. I lift and punch him with my hips, okay, to get him on his side. From here, what are my options? I can continue and create these pathways that I've already discovered to avoid certain things. Maybe I've tracked his ability for that head over or leg overhead counter to crossbody. I know that going in. I set the king's chair, grabs my arm. I'm going to inside wrist. I set him down. I take the back instead of going from Kimura control straight to crossbody. Because all of this needs to be recorded. I need to understand the physical profile of my partner, size of his arms, things like that, and his tendencies. I'm tracking his tendencies to adjust my system and have an answer, essentially problem solving in this case. So again, let's roll him out. I'm going. He grabs, I stay in motion. I'll pull it if I have to with my hands. Let's say he grabs my wrist all weird, I'll grab it, pull it, maybe punch him in the head like that. And then I'm punching as I drive. I'm really high. Sometimes I grab his leg and I punch. And then I get him down, smothering. I can slow the game down or continue, boom. In this case, I'm coming in so hot. This happens a lot. Phase 2, like I said before, just lock it down, keep the fight going. Or get your leg inside and start implementing that system. Again, paying attention that when I'm threading dynamically, I'm increasing the energy. When I have him pinned, I want to transition from dynamic to deliberate. So boom, leg inside, lock it down, break that grip, secure it. Go ahead and defend. Secure it, ratchet. Everything's working for my favor. Okay, so attacking, remember, we're always in control mode, but every so often I don't mind giving up a little bit of leverage and control to get the finish. Okay, it's a good relationship between those two. On this one, we're going to start mid, the mid control position that we have with phase 1. Now, when you're attacking in the mid position, he's at his strongest point. Because remember, the core is the strongest part of the body. And so when he's hugging his own arm, so phase 1, please, and he's nice and tight, okay? This is a very strong position because his elbows are really close to his body. They're not opened up, flared out. They're not over his head, okay? So attacking traditionally towards the head, he weakens, but it's closer to the hitchhiker. There's no such thing as only gaining with whatever decisions you choose to make. You gain and lose. Attacking towards the leg, again, it's away from that center line of core. So he's at his strongest point, across that elbow line, okay? And we want to really understand that, yeah, mid is a great pinning position, and there are attacks. I'm going to show some attacks from it, but he's going to defend that with a lot of power and leverage. It's just the nature of the beast. So I'm locked out with my Kimura. I'm hitting my vise, pulling my heels in, engaging my hips nice and tight. My legs are locked, so he can't just open that lock and get whatever he wants out of it. And it allows me to flare my knees. All right, so for this finish, there's different ways you can do it. Number 1, I'll just get to it. It's a rear naked choke finish. And if you notice, as I do this, I'm getting nice and tight, sitting myself up, and I sound like a broken record, but every time my back leaves the ground, I'm losing leverage. And so what this form gives me, I can close my eyes because I'm so attached to him and feel his intent. Feel how much he's going to struggle, how strong he is, how long his arms are. All of those play an account to how I'm going to choose to attack him. So for example, if I get somebody with really long arms or really short arms, there's a disadvantage to each of those scenarios. The shorter the arms, the less room I have to control. The longer the arms, it changes the range that I have to apply pressure. So if the arms are really long, sometimes leaning all the way back, put my back on the ground is not putting enough pressure on the position, and he has a lot of motion and a lot of confidence. Well, I want to destroy that confidence. So for me, ideally, that's why I chose Chris here to be my partner. He's got similar body type as myself, and to me, that's most ideal. Same type of body type. So again, his arms aren't so long that I can quickly get that threshold of pressure, and they're not so short that as I do that, I might lose the arm, okay? I think we've all experienced that. That's a really important point when you're training with somebody is create a physical profile for them. Understand their strengths and weaknesses depending on their body type and your body type and how to adjust to control them to the best of your ability. All right, so now I have a closed guard here, flaring, same position. I'm going to sit up. And again, when I sit up, I'm not lingering. I'm going to attack right away. Now, the only way to really do this is dynamically. This is not a deliberate approach back and forth. It's a dynamic rip that I'm doing, okay? I'm just showing you without going too hard. I'm essentially sawing left to right to center my focus on breaking the lock of the phase 1 position, okay? There's many ways to break that lock. In this case, since I'm mid position and I'm not swaying side to side, I don't necessarily have the fulcrums and the levers to apply pressure to this position. The pressure comes, in this case, in more of a sawing format, okay? Driving side to side. Now, maintaining the closed guard until I'm ready to finish. Nice and tight. To practice this, put that elbow nice and tight to your chest and just slowly saw it. And he's going to relax a little bit and allow me to break it free. And when we're doing this in a controlled environment, as it breaks, I'm in good form here because the elbow hasn't left my body. So let's say don't move your arm. If I start pulling and he doesn't go with me and I put my back on the ground, notice how weak I am now. We're almost at a 50-50 position where if he regains the phase one, I may lose the arm altogether. Okay, so I don't want that. Once I've committed to this, I try to keep it. If I don't like what's going on, then I'll move on to the next position. Okay, but for now, I go. If I don't break it, then I may go back to this position if the shoulder comes off the ground, for example. All right, here, dynamically torquing side to side. If the lock doesn't break, just again, really important detail, I'm not pulling and getting excited. I stay with it as I go all the way to the finish. All right, so slow motion on that. It's hard to do it slow motion for real, but it's slow motion. I'm ratcheting side to side to break that lock. As it breaks, then I'm keeping it side to side, because the best way to disrupt a straight line of power is with that ratcheting motion to break that power. I'm not just going to pull. Unless I'm superhuman strength, rarely am I going to be able to pull and break that grip. But going side to side and getting that allows me to increase my leverage. Another part of this is the emotional side to it. And it's a little bit instructive, but I tell people to get into it like you're an actor. So your face really shows to me how much you're into this move. And this is one of those dynamic moves. And when you're hitting something dynamic, I should see the passion in your face as you get into it, because it's difficult to do this move like that, stoic. It doesn't make sense to me. That's a contrast. I want to be into it like this is my possession, and I'm taking it and ripping it away from him. I'm taking that possession and stealing it. So I want to get into it and really put that passion behind it, because that's that mindset that I think you need, especially when attacking that mid position, okay? Now, if you notice, slow motion again, as soon as I break that lock, my legs naturally open. Now, you can keep it like this, but for a dynamic finish, I quickly open. And what that does, obviously, it gives me a jolt, again, using the ground as leverage to really drive my hips forward. If I break the lock dynamically and then I want to slow it down, I may just keep a closed guard. Keep a closed guard I really like, especially if it's not challenging me too much. And I'll slightly, again, lay slightly away from the head. To me, I'd rather let the arm go way towards the legs than towards the head at all. Slightly go here. Everything's good. Now, at any point, I can really charge that up and put a little fear into him. Remember, I don't know the exact percentage on anybody, but there's definitely a percentage of arm bars that you're going to get, which is fear-based. So people tap just because of how much control you have of them. Remember the first aspects of rule of 6, the mid, head, and leg, and finding that threshold. That's in the back of his mind. He understands that there's so much pressure there that once it's released, many times people tap right away, which is a little bit of a dilemma. And what I mean by that, it's a good thing because you get the tap. It's a bad thing because a higher level competitor is not going to do that. They're not afraid of you. They're not afraid of the pressure that you're applying, and they're not afraid of the finish. They've been there before. Their threshold for pain is much larger degree than traditional people that don't compete. So it's good to do this on competitors, build that on a lower level to build the confidence, and then do it on somebody who doesn't mind their arm getting wrenched a little bit, because it really is a testament to your not only willpower to stay the course, but also your mindset to inflict that much dynamic torque on that arm. So again, get into it now. I can slow it down if I want, or keep it speeded up, stuff the arm, and bridge and finish. Okay, now we're going to attack from the mounted position. Remember the context. I only know arm bars. That's the theme here. We're just really developing system upon system that really connects itself to be one system dedicated to getting to that crossbody position and taking their arm home with me, okay? So he's down in mounted position. There's a lot of positions that are right next to this. I mean, any position, side control, mount, back, they're all related. Knee on stomach, okay? So we're gonna connect all of them. The mount is my, say, least favorite, but it's starting to become my second favorite of the main 3 attacks. So back, mount, side. Side is my favorite. Back is my second, but really it's mount and back. They're very similar. for reasons that I'm going to go into. But first of all, I'm just going back to the principles of these positions. I want to avoid guard. We have the battle zone, hip escape, the relationship, the other way, the relationship between the hip, the elbow, and knee. Okay, those frames allow him to push me away and really disallow me to, again, work on putting all 4 quadrants on the ground to get to that crossbody position. Okay, he's flat again. The relationship also with the elbow line and the knee line, okay? So, which is difficult from mount. Side control, for me, I can turn my back to the legs. And it doesn't mean I stop being concerned with them, but really I'm facing only half of his potential to make space with this straight arms and frames that he's creating here. So this elbow line is really almost everything I really need to deal with initially when I'm in side control. Okay, that's why I like side control. With mount, for example, though, it's true my back is facing it, but it's the key to opening my legs, hip escape, elbow escape, and creating space to disrupt my attack. Once he does that, obviously his agenda is being pushed, and then I'm pushed from being proactive to reactive. And I don't want that, okay? So mount position to me is dealing both with the knee line and the elbow line. Okay, fundamental approach from mount to getting to that S mount to the crossbody finish. Remember, we're in mount. Where do I want to go? This theme of all these lessons and my game in general is to hit that arm bar, to take his arm away from him. Okay, so he's down. This is an easy lesson. We got 2 approaches to this, a very fundamental approach, very basic, and then a little bit more advanced that puts a lot of pressure on my partner. Okay, so I'm mounted. My mount traditionally, I'll engage one side, so I favor one side. I'm a lightweight, so I don't traditionally hang out level with him, meaning nose to nose, if you will. I like to be offline. And what that does is it gives me a little bit of extension or range with my snake hook, I call it. It snakes around, that grapevine hook, whatever, around his leg. Now I work from here to here. All of these positions are good, but I have to track, again, his capabilities. The longer he is, those hooks can be used against me. This is like an underhook, overhook approach. When you're first learning grappling, you learn an underhook and you think it's the greatest thing in the world, but underhooks can be countered by an overhook. Okay, so in this situation, grapevines or hooks from the mounted position are great until they're not. Meaning he can just stomp his foot and then use that leverage to dump me. And that's why I tend to stay offline, plus I'm small. You know, I get, even guys my size will shove me away. So to me, mount is a game of hiding my feet, and it's a game of staying offline, and it's a game of putting a lot of pressure, using that bungee concept to then give it up if I need to and get to that knee on stomach position. And like I've already outlined in our knee on stomach position, that's easy to do because I'm offline already, which means this leg, this foot is running up. I call it the running leg. This enables me to dismount quickly. Okay? If I don't like what's going on, he's shoving me and whatever. Okay, I dismount. Now I can go right into that system that we outlined and really connecting these because it's a transition of position, right? So back to keeping mount, really solid snake leg and a running leg. And I will transition this, but if I feel I lose this, I'll pull it out. Because again, he can stomp his foot and throw me this way. You know, when we talk about dynamic movement, when I'm leaning off to the side, I'm increasing the range to which he has to travel to get me over there. So this, go ahead and drive, just slowly drive me, versus this. Go. It puts me in that position where that S mount many times is easy, right? If he makes the mistake to do that. Now remember, I'll get a black belt to do that. I'll just get him hypoxic, give him the crazy eye a little bit, and they'll be frantic to get out of this position. So yeah, sometimes he's just moving, go drive, and I because my hands are on the ground, I'm ready to shift my hips. Okay, so I have an S mount here, a kickstand, I'm driving, I'm in good position, the elbow's going to my chest, all the proper fundamentals, and I'm in range to start attacking here. and really make that effort. So if I want to initiate a response, I'll just add the crossface here. And again, right on the jawline. I do not want to hurt him. And there's an etiquette. I'm not trying to be mean. At the same time, there's a theme of disrupting that spine. I'm driving that head away from the action, which is me, right? So he grabs and he makes it easy for me. I'm driving. If he overextends this a little bit, makes a mistake, since my left hand is posted, I just shoot my leg. So my body does a lot of that work to get that elbow where I want it. Because I'm posted, I'm just going to bring this leg across, situate this position, driving my hips. This is like that vice position without my other leg over, but I'm still super heavy. And then from here, I have a kickstand, my knees backing up the head. I go holler on one side, transition to the other, keep that elbow nice and tight, assist it like I did before, and now I have a finish. Can I finish right here? Yes. Just make sure you're nice and low and you're using that fulcrum. Now there's a release in pressure. We talked about that in the crossbody position. Be careful, especially no-gi. Release in pressure, he can pull his arm out. Now I have to drop back down and get into the next lesson of making this a little bit more advanced version of itself to get right back to where I want to be. Okay, so the system continues whether or not you're prepared for it or not. Ideally, we are. That's the basic version of getting to the S-mount. The advanced version is a Ralph Gracie special. It's my black belt instructor. Talk about disrupting the spine here. He's level here, and I'm going to smash his head to the side. It accomplishes a couple things. Number one, it's hard for him to bridge off his head because I'm turning it. Number two, it's inducing a little bit of stress because it's a little bit painful. It's also the process of smashing him to one side, holding his head in place so he can't adjust to the space and angle that I'm creating to get to the S-mount. So here's what I mean by that. So now he's leveling it up. He's really hard to manage here. I do have a cross-face choke position. Now, can I do the double attack choke? Sure, I'll shake it and go. If he reaches up, that gives me that in too. Okay? To me, though, those are super fundamental. And these days, a lot of people are not falling for it. So he keeps his elbow tight. And he's just alleviating pressure so I'm not choking him. Okay, you should have a good choke. But if I'm not choking and I feel like I can't choke him, I'm going to really take this. What I want to do is lower my chest and really push this. Keep your back straight. As I straighten my leg. So I'm holding it in place wherever it is, turning my body, holding it in place that backs up with the hand. Now look, my left foot turns me over and I disrupt the spine. This is the worst position. I'm just going to interrupt it right there. Probably one of the reasons why I have really bad cauliflower area because I was the dummy for many private lessons that was teaching this. You feel the pressure. I'm shoving your arm this direction and I'm pulling your head in this direction. Okay, that's an opposing force. So I'm generating a lot of power to get to the S-mount. So many times he's mentally just going to give up. He wants you to S-mount because the S-mount is actually a relief. For me, I'm advancing my position. For him, he's not going to die. Like he feels like he should be like, man, I want to get out of here. But he doesn't want to be embarrassed to tap into a position that's not a submission. But there's so much pressure here. He's many times going to let you just go. If he fights it, it just generates more pressure. So again, I'm in this mounted position and I turn my body. Also, this is a really good position to hide my foot in case he turns his hips. He can't trap it. So I got to be cautious of that, right? So let's say I turn, cross face here, right here. I pin it. This foot is going to drive all the way across until it's a sprawled position. Right then, I drop my elbow. And then I pull his head back. Right there. This is what I want. Now I slide my knee up. Now I'm in good. Okay? So you're creating so much pressure here. Really adding a lot of misery to this position. I'm not hurting him because he can tap at any moment. But I am addressing the difficulty of really physically moving these arms. It's so difficult, especially if he's confident, he's been here before. He's desensitized to mount. You know, he's not so easily stressed out. So we're going to add some stress.